Good day, students. Once again, I will be recording this question, which is on ratio and proportion. In fact, it's an exercise proportion. It's an exercise, but I decided to expand the exercise to 4 different ways of doing a similar question or the same question, but in similar different ways. It says a farmer sold 2/5 of his sheep in the month of January. And then after he sold 4/7 of the remainder in the month of February. If he sold altogether 780 sheep, then how many sheep were left? Now, what I did in this question, I divided it into 4 questions or 4 different scenarios. Now, in scenario number 2 is similar question, but instead of the fraction, I have a percentage of the sheep that were sold. Then second month he sold 4/7, which that is converted to be 57%. And we know that to convert a fraction into a percentage, we say 4/7 times by 100, then this will give us 57%. But obviously there were decimals, and my focus is not on the decimals, but is on the simplicity of the fraction in the simple form of that of a percentage. And the number of sheep that were sold altogether, they still remain the same. But in the third scenario, I now have the same number of sheep that were sold, same fraction that was sold, and second term the same fraction that was sold, but it says if he had 270 sheep left not sold. Previously it was 780 that were sold. Now if he had 270 left, how many sheep he had originally? Now the question is shifted a little bit. Then the last one, instead of the fraction, is back to percentage, which is 40%, not 50%. I just think I must have done a typing error there, and I'm not going to cancel the question because it's just a small mistake. So this is 40%. Then the second time is still sold the same 57%. Then after lastly now we still has the same 270 that is left as with the previous one, but the difference with this is the fact that we deal with the percentage instead of the fractions. So this is very important explanation that I will bring to you today, and it will make you understand how to deal with the fractions, and knowing that a fraction can be expressed as a percentage, or you can express a fraction into a percentage, and with the percentage it becomes a little bit easier. Probably I'll have another version of the same question that I expand into the actual numbers that we have. Now let's go to the first one. It says a farmer sold 2/5 of his sheep. So now if he sells 2/5 of his sheep, we need to know how much is the remainder. 2/5 is the one that was sold in the month of January. Then 3/5 will be the remainder. So now that means 3/5 is the remaining one, is the remainder of the sheep out of the one that he sold. So now he sold 2/5, then the remainder is 3/5. Remember, the reason why the remainder is 3/5 is because it must be such that 2/5 plus whatever number divided by 5, which has to be 3, it must give us 1, where the lowest common denominator is the same. We just keep the base as 5 and we add what is above, so that our answer must be 1, and the 1 indicate 100% of what we have in the beginning before the sale took place. So that's why the remainder now becomes 3/5. Then now it further says that he sold the remainder. He sold 4/7 of the remainder. Now if he sold 4/7 of the remainder, what does that mean? It means he sold 4/7 of what was left. That means 4/7 multiply this by 3/5. Therefore, now we need to know how much did he sell in the month of February. Then 4 times 3, it will give us 12, and 7 times 5, it will give us 35. This is the sales for the month of February. This is what he sold in the month of February. Sales of February are 12 over 35. Now, if you want to know what percentage that was sold, you can still say 12 over 35 times by 100. That means that is 34%, rounding off to the whole percentage or to the whole number. But I will deal with the percentage when I am with the percentages. Then now that means he sold the percentage of 35. Previously, the percentage of the sale was 40%, but I'm with the fraction so far. So now we are told that what was left was 710, no, not what was left. If he sold 780 altogether, that means the total sales equals 780. Now in this case, we are required to calculate how many sheep were left. We first need to know how many sheep this farmer had in total. That means we need to say, let x equals the number of sheep. Let x equal the number of sheep. Take note of the fact that 780 is the total sales. That means sales for January plus sales for February equals 780 rand. This is what this means, that's 780. Now we know that in January sold 2 over 5. In February sold 12 over 35. Remember, 4 over 7 was the portion of sales of the remainder. That means actual sales that he made were 12 over 35. So now that means 2 over 5 plus 12 over 35 will give us 780. And I want to stress this, although I will explain under the percentages again. Now when it says he sold 4 over 7 of the remainder, take note it says 4 over 7 of the remainder. I want to just highlight this. This is equal to 780. This is 4 over 7 of the remainder. What is the remainder? Let's look at the remainder. Remember, the remainder is 3 over 5. So that means he sold 4 over 7 of the remainder, meaning of 3 over 5. This is what that sentence means. He sold 4 over 7 of 3 over 5. He sold 4 over 7 of the remainder, and the remainder being 3 over 5. Now mathematically, the word of means multiplication. So that means we multiply. We want to know how many units were actually sold for the month of February. Then this becomes 12 over 35. I've explained this already. This is 12 over 35. So it's very important to be mindful. Now let us deal with the equation now, where we said we need to let x be the number of sheep. Let x equals the number of sheep. And I did tell you that the sales of January 2 over 5 plus the sales of February 12 over 35 equals 780 number of sheep. This is the total sales for January and February. Therefore, now we can say 2 over 5. We need to put x now, x indicating the fraction, the amount of sheep this farmer had, plus 12 over 35x is equal to 780. You can put x in the beginning. I just wanted to put the fractions as they are before I put the x. The reason why we put x is because out of 2, remember 2 over 5, if you remember, our 2 over 5 is 2 over 5 times by 100. That means it's 40%. In other words, this 2 over 5 is indicating 40% of the sales. That means we are saying 40% times by the number of sheep that we don't know, times by the number of sheep this farmer had. We don't know how many sheep he had, but we know that 40% of what he had, he sold it. So hence now we multiply by x, and this x representing the number of sheep. This x representing the number of sheep. Hence we multiply there by x, the fraction of 2/5, which is the same as 40%. So now we look for the lowest common denominator, and 35 will be the lowest common multiple. Why that? Because 5 goes to 5 once and leaves no remainder, and 5 does go to 35 and leaves no remainder. I don't know how many times it goes. 5 goes to 35, that means it will be 35 divided by 5. It will be 7 times 7 times 2, it gave us 14. 35 goes to 35 once, 1 times 12, it will give us 12. We say plus 12x. This is equal to 780. So now we need to add 14 plus 12, 26 over 35x. Remember, the x is divided by 1. That means this x is here, we divide it by 1. So it goes with the 26. So we have 26x is equal to 780. Then after we'll have our 26x. And we are doing what is called cross multiplication. This will multiply that 1, and this will multiply the 35. So now in other words, we say 35 multiply this by 780, it gives us 27,300 equals 26x. We are looking for x, not 26x. So we divide by 26. Whatever we do on the right hand side, we also do it on the left hand side. X indicating the number of sheep will be 27,300 divided by 26. That means this owner had 1,050 sheep altogether, meaning in total, before he sold January and sold in February. So this is the number of sheep that he had. If he had, say, 1,050, therefore, how many sheep are left? The sheep that are left will be the total sheep he had minus the sheep that were sold, which is 780. This will give us the number of sheep that are left, meaning the closing inventory of his sheep. 710, 270 sheep in total that were left at the end of the sales of January. So we responded to the question. This is what they wanted from us. Now I want to go to scenario number 2, or another approach number 2. Now in the second approach, I have percentages. Everything is the same, but I have percentages in this case. A farmer sold 40% of his sheep in January. Now we are under scenario number 2. EG number 2. A farmer sold 40%. That means if 40% is sold in January, how much percentage will remain? That means 60% will remain. 60% is the remainder of the sheep at the end of January, becoming the opening inventory of the number of sheep in the month of February. Remainder for February or sales upwards. So now that is a percentage remainder and the percentage that is sold. Obviously, if you sell 40%, then 60% will be left. So now that means in this case, we go to the second one now, and 57% of the remainder. He sold 57% of the remainder. So now we need to know how much percent did he sell. Then now we are looking for sales for the month of February. Sales for February. How much percent is left is 60%. How much percent did he sell? He sold 57, 0.57. One must be a decimal, in this case 60 times by 0.57. That means he sold 34%, 34.2. I don't want to keep the decimal, I'll just round off to the whole percentage. So that means he sold 34% in February. I want to go back to what I did previously. If you remember previously, we said he sold a percentage of 12 over 35, which was 4 over 7 of the remainder. That gave us 12 over 35. Now, if you say 12 divided by 35, how much do we get? we still get the same 34% that we have in this current percentage scenario. So either way, we still get to the same numbers, if you see. So this 12 over 35, it is the 34%. It is the 34%, just to verify. Yes, it is 34.2. I thought 32 something. It is 34%. So now I sold 34% in the month of February. That means sales of January plus sales of February will give us the total sales. So now that means our total sales will be, which was just 60 times 0.57, just to verify 34. Therefore now we have 34 plus 40. That means total sales is 74%. That means he sold 74% between January and February. So this is our total sales, 40 plus 34, which is 74%. And this farmer is really selling in the beginning of the year, is making too much money. Now we have this information now, and we know that sales of January, which is 40%, times by X, remember, or we can say 40% sales of January plus 34% sales of February equals 780. Why am I saying this? Is because we are told that altogether I sold how much? 780 sheep. That is the total sales. But in terms of percentage, it is 40% plus 34%. I hope you get me when I say 34% above the 57%. I hope you get me, because it is the remainder of 60 times by 0.57, which gave us 34%. So the sales of February, it is 34%, because 57% of 60% is 34%. And let me leave it there. Hope you are not confused. 40% of what? 40% of the sheep that he had, and 34% of the sheep that he had. We don't know the number of sheep that he had, but we let the number of sheep to be X. 40% times by the number of sheep and 34% times by the number of sheep will give us the total sales of 780. So now in other words, this will be 0.4x plus 0.34x equals 780 sheep. So now let us add the percentage. It will be 0.4 plus 0.34. This will give us 0.74, which is the same 74%. X, representing the number of sheep, is equal to 780. So now we are looking for X, which is the number of sheep. 0.74 cancel 0.74, and we divide here by 0.74. So now X will be the number of sheep, which is 780 divided by 0.74. This gives us 1054. This gives us 1054. But obviously, due to some rounding off, so this is 780 divided by 0.74. This is 1054. So only because of the rounding off that will result to that. So this is the total sheep that he had altogether. Total sheep that he had altogether. Then we need to know how many sheep are left. Sheep that are left will be 1050 minus 780. Then obviously it will give us the same amount as 270 sheep that were left after the sales of January. No, the amount will be different because there is this rounding off, 1054. I want to keep that figure as is. 1054 minus 780. Let me not use what is correct. So this will give us 274 sheep that are left. I want to focus based on the number that I have, so that I don't force them to be the same as those ones because of the rounding off. Otherwise, all calculations are perfect and it is accurate, or they are accurate. So this is how now you deal with the percentage. In the case where there's no rounding off, this 1054 will be exactly the same as that 1050. Exactly the same. Otherwise, I did test in other scenarios. It is perfectly the same. Now, This is how you deal with the percentage. And what I'm emphasizing here is the different approach of calculating the same thing, so that in the exam, if maybe another approach you find it complicated for you, you can use another approach. Now make sure that if you decide not to use the fractions but use percentage, take all the decimals. That means in the case where we had a calculation where I think there was a decimal starting in the in fact it will have to begin from the information that I provided, because the 4/7, which is 57%, in this case it is 4/7, they are decimals. So in this case you'll have to take all the decimals and multiply by 100 and take all the decimals after the comma if you want your answers to be accurate exactly as they were supposed to be. If you decide that the fraction is confusing, you want to use percentage, that will not be a problem, but we also need to make sure that you understand both the fraction and the percentage, because we want you to know comprehensively the knowledge on the subject in all the topics that we are teaching you. Now we come to the third one, which is exercise 2E.2. It says in this case, a farmer sold 2/5 of his sheep in January and 4/7 of the remainder in February. If he had 270 of the sheep left, take note, 270 left. Previously, it was 780 that was sold. If he had sold 780, but if it says that if he had 270 sheep left, now this is the different scenario, very close to the one that we have done. Now, I'm not going to be re-explaining the basics that we have done, but I'll go to the major part. That means we have 2/5 of the sales plus 12/35 of the sales for the month of January and February. Now I want to know first my total sales altogether. Total sales altogether. Even in the first scenario, we could have done that if we wanted, where we first calculate the total sales of all together, because total sales for all these sheep is 26/35, which is 2/5 plus 12/35. At the end, it gives us 26/35. We could have done that in the beginning. So this is what I'm doing now in this case, which I know that it will give me 26/35. So we have 26/35 number of sheep. So now in this case, they said that after we have sold 26/35, let us just again approach it literally from the percentage perspective. 26/35, that means this owner sold how much percent? 74%. If you remember, our total sales was 74%, and that 74% came from where? It was 40% plus the sales of 34%, that became 74%. And our total sales now, once again, in terms of fraction, our total sales in terms of fraction was 26/35, which is 74%. So I just want you to blend your mind in the understanding of the relationship between the fraction and the percentage, and all the tricks around it. Now we know that this is 74% of the total sales for January and February, but we are told that the owner had 270 of the sheep that were left. That means total sheep that we don't know, which represent X, minus the sales for January and February, it gives us 207. That means total sheep that we don't know, because we don't know how many sheep this owner had. Ignore the fact that we know it's 1,050. In this scenario, we don't know. So now we say out of the sheep that we don't know, which indicate X, minus the total sales, of which our sales is 26/35. It will give us the remainder. Total sheep we have minus those that were sold, it will give us the remainder of 270. So now that is where our equation will begin. We say out of the 26/35, which is 74% of the sales, minus sorry, this is the number, sometimes I confuse this, of the total ship minus the one that was sold, because it will be negative now. 26 over 35 x, it is equal to 270. So now remember, we need to know in this case how many sheep he had originally. This is divided by 1. We look for the common denominator, which is 35. 1 goes to 35, 35 times x, it will be 35x. Minus 35 goes to 35, once 1 times 26, it will give us 26x, is equal to 270. So now we say 35 minus 26, 35 minus 26, this is 9 over 35 x equals 270. This is divided by 1. We cross multiply 9 times 1, it will give us 9x. 35 times by 270, meaning 270 by 35, it gives us 9,450. 9,450. Then we divide by 9 and we divide by 9. Then we say divide by 9. How much do we get? We get 1,050. 1,050 is equal to x. Remember, this will cancel this. That means the number of sheep this farmer had in total was 1,050. So now if we had 1,050 and we know that he sold in total, he sold 780, that we know, but it's not in this scenario, then obviously the remainder will be the 270. That means if you say 1,050 minus 780, it will give us the remainder. We already know the 780. Even if you say 1,050 minus 270, meaning total unit ship that he had minus what was left, it will give us our sales of 780. So now they could ask you how many sheep were sold. That means sheep were sold, sold will be 1,050 minus what is remaining. In other words, we say inventory available for sales 1,050 minus closing inventory, meaning sheep that were left at the end of the 2 months. Then it will tell us how many sheep were left or how many units were sold, units of sheep. 780 sheep would have been sold over the period of 2 months. So guys, the importance is to know this question in all dimensions. They can ask you in any format, a mix of percentage and probably ratios. Now let me go to the last, also an easy scenario, because I've explained this now in 3 different ways. This is the 4th way now. Now in this 4th way, we are told that a farmer sold 40%, remember this is 40%, sold 40% of his sheep in January and 57% of the remainder in February. If he had 270 of the sheep left, how many sheep he had, or we can say how many sheep were sold. Now we can say in this case how many sheep were sold. We want to know those that were sold now. So let us look at the sheep that were sold, and which also in this case we can say how many sheep were sold. How many sheep were sold. I know we already know the one that was sold in this case, so that won't fit in that scenario. So let us leave it here. Yeah, because we know how much was sold. You can ask only what was sold in the last, how many sheep were sold, because I started explaining the part of 780 here, the one that was sold. So now let me continue on that same note. Remember, we already know the numbers once again, but I still want to stress it out. That 40% this were sold in January. Sold in January, then 60% becomes the remainder now. 60% becomes the remainder. Then in February, how much is sold? In February, he sells 57% of the remainder, meaning 57% of what is sold. Then it will be 60% or 60 times by 0.57 is equal to 34%, meaning it sold 34%. And again, now the total sales will be equal to 74%. 74% being 40% of the sales of January plus 34% of the sales of the month of February. Now, we know that is 74%. That means the X amount of ship minus 74%. We don't know 74% of the ship that he had will give us 270. We don't know how many ship he had in total, but we know that after we sell 74% of the ship that is the farmer had, what will be left will be 270. Remember, we are told once again that if he had 270 ship left, you need to listen to the question. In this case, they said left, and they said left. Here they said he sold all together. These were the total sales. So our equation had to accommodate our total sales equation. So now that means we then now say we don't know the percentage of the ship that were sold, but we know that the percentage or the fraction, the percentage will be out of 100%. Now in this case, we use this approach. Then now we need now to then use our percentages. Then in this case, it will be X minus 0.74X is equal to 270. Remember, I'm just changing the percentage now into a decimal. That means I have to say 1 minus 0.74. Remember, this X is 1 because 1 in this case is indicating 100%. 100% of the ship that we had. 100% of the ship that we had. Now, and this, I think we had another percentage that I want to link with the one that we have. Yes, if we sold to 74%, then the remainder will be what percentage? If we sold 74, that means 100 minus 74, that means the remainder will be 26. And you can see here, if you say 1 indicating 100, if you say 1 minus 0.74, it gives us 26. That means 26% will be the remainder. So now it will be 0.26x is equal to 270. We divide by 0.26, this cancel this, we divide by 0.26, then x will be, then we say 270 divided by 0.26. This gives us 1038. This gives us 1038. Then this is 270 divided by 0.26. This gives us 1038. Once again, just small rounding off issue. Just small rounding off issue. So this will be how we deal with our calculations. And somebody else here can put 100 indicating 100%, of which 100% is still at the same time 1. So that will still not change anything. You still get to the correct answers and the way answers were supposed to be. So now this will be ship that he had. Then we need to know how many ship were sold. Then we say 1038 minus the one that were left. This will tell us how many ship were sold. 1038 minus 270. This will give us 768 ship. 768 ship that were sold, depending on the requirement that was required. Yeah, guys, I hope you are very clear with the percentage. And remember, at the same time, I'm using this percentage because I know when you do contingency table, you will most of the times or sometimes you'll be given percentages information, and you have to multiply percentage by percentage and all that stuff. Yeah, guys, with that being said, thank you very much. You've been lovely and you've been a good audience. Thank you. May the Lord be with you. yes, I'll record another question though, on another scenario of the little boy, which is very similar to this one again. Thanks, guys.